And we are recording with Mr. Jeffrey Prather on Wednesday, May 1st, 2024 at 10:15 a.m. Eastern time. Isn't it Commie Day? Isn't this their big day over there? Isn't this when we sent the U2 over to take pictures on? Isn't it like the communist May Day? Is that it? Is that
Yeah, it
correct?
is. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Whatever, they're worthless. Guys, please go in the description. Please go check out Mr. Prather's podcast. Please go grab his book, Chase, which is in the background, which we've discussed before. Um, but it's been a minute since I had you on, and so for the idea you said, so I'm aware of the Great Reset and the demonic pedophiles that are trying to turn the Earth into a living hell, which itself is just a whole other topic to get into. But you said it's that versus I've often heard the phrase the Great Awakening versus the Great Reset, but you said the Great American Meetup. So, but for the new listeners, Mr. Prather, please introduce yourself so they know who you are, and then we'll jump on into it.
Well, the thanks. Good to be back with you, Tommy. And
Yes, sir.
the Great American Meetup is my shameless promotion for my event, June 7th through 9th in Tulsa, which is mostly Team America and the chaplaincy. So there's ChristChaplaincy.com and there's JeffreyPrather.com/ join Team America if you're interested. So that's the counter because I always offer options, answers, and solutions, not just problems. But
Mm.
yeah, so I am a product of rape, given up for adoption. I was in an orphanage, adopted by a great family, very blessed. Ended up going into the Army as a military intelligence officer. Started off in 4th PSYOPs group, so I was already airborne. So I linked up with 7th Special Forces and the Rangers. Spent a lot of time on the border of Nicaragua and crossing into Nicaragua in the 80s, worked with the Contras. Saw the CIA Contra cash and cocaine cartel build that built the Clinton cartel of death. Went over to 7th Group as an MI officer, and then got recruited while I was waiting for the Panama invasion. There was I was at Fort Sherman, and there was a long-haired team being trained. I thought they were CIA SAD. They were DEA Snowcap, which was DEA Special Operations Team for special agents to interdict cocaine labs with host nation police and military. Got recruited to DEA, left active duty as a captain in 90, became a DEA Drug Enforcement Administration special agent, special operator, snowcap operator, and firearms instructor, primary firearms instructor. Got recalled to active duty. So I did a lot. I was on the border for 10 years. So I did a lot of all the border stuff is old hat to me. I've done a decade plus on the border, done cross-border operations, lots of tunnels, over border operations, all kinds of stuff. Very familiar with all of that. And let's see, 03, 04 was activated for the second war on terror to DIA and ran their watch center, which took me to CIA, FBI, NRA, NRO, or not NRA,
NRF.
NSA,
All right.
NSA, White House Situation Room. And ended up after that active duty year training a lot of about 21,000 troops in pre-deployment courses at mywarriorschool.com tactical shooting and training school. And in 09, after 19 years on the job, because I exposed the DEA's deal for working with the Sinaloa cartel, which came out in the Niebla Zambada federal trial that you can look up. The DEA had a deal with the Sinaloa cartel to run drugs north in exchange for the Fast and Furious guns going south. I was fired, 19 years on the job, 1 year from retirement, no bad avowals, never charged, never convicted, because I exposed that. And I was originally doing some security work for the Tea Party because they were getting attacked, and met a lot of luminaries back then. And then eventually I started guesting, and then I was on Drudge and Fox and back in the day. And then Tucker used to talk to me, and then Laura Ingraham. Then I got thrown off there for telling too much truth. And then I was on the radio and I got thrown off there for telling too much truth. And I was on YouTube, about 78,000 followers, and got thrown off there but now I'm doing podcast and bigger than ever. Yeah. And now that brings me on to you.
It's always it's like if you constantly get banned, you do have to like examine. You're like, what am I doing? And so long as you're not doing something purely evil, like I don't know, harming children or like inciting violence, you have to come back to like, yeah, no, I'm fine. Because you do. It's like if you walk around and the whole world smells like dog poop, you should check your foot. You should check your shoe first before you write the whole world off. So like I do have to. I mean, banned from YouTube, Twitter, Reddit, iTunes. Sometimes I'm like, what am I? Hold on, like I have to be humble enough to be like, am I just like starting fights with people I shouldn't? But I'll look back and be like, no, I haven't done anything wrong. So it's like you do kind of have to have that self analysis. But then if you can clear it all off and be like, no, I'm good. Then it's just keep trucking forward. And I was gonna say, yeah, no, I don't know why. I think the first time we ever talked, I always just when I think of you, I just think of Snowcap. I always just think of I don't know why. It just always pops into my head.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, I don't know why. Just how old are you?
I just turned 67.
Yeah,
Have you had any other snow cappers on?
no, I was gonna say no. It's just awesome that I was gonna say no. The beard and the hair. It's like you are becoming the epitome of Snowcap.
Yeah.
And it's you're
Well,
you're you're not a chick, so I know that's not insulting.
well,
Uh,
DEA was so I was gonna go either Delta, because actually Rich Ellis was the S2 of Second to the Seventh, and he went over to Delta, and I was either gonna go there or leave active duty, and I was already injured, and you as an officer you don't get to stay, and some Delta guys told me that you always end up getting pulled back. You got to cut your hair, put on your uniform. But DEA was the shit back then, and it was back and so I went. It was the most dangerous job in law enforcement back then, and so I went DEA, and we were really doing some good work in the '90s, and I was doing it domestically. And then when I was doing cross-border ops in Mexico, and then of course deploying on snowcap tours. Uh, it was cool in the '90s, and three of my best friends got killed in a plane crash. I just happened not to go. Meredith Baxter, Jay Seal, and Frankie Fernandez were my class. I just kind of missed that one because I just finished 4 months back at the Ranger Training Battalion doing that crap again. So it was good. By the 2000s, though, DEA was pretty corrupt as well, and
Rotten
not doing
through.
much. But yeah, back in those days, it was cool. My first big seizure was 4,000 pounds of cocaine. No, 2,000 pounds of cocaine on 30 horses coming across Mariposa Canyon, right behind the customs office. There, that was my intro
That's
into that world.
That's madness. It's like Scarface times 1,000. So the Great American Meetup, and yeah, no, just don't ever say shameless plug. I mean, to the victor goes the spoils. That's you build up your platform over the years, you get to just plug stuff. It's like other people have to pay for it. You're allowed to just don't say shameless plug. It's not shameless because if it's shameless, I'm shameless too. So whatever. But what is it to jump into? Because I have all the links to the other stuff, but like what exactly is it?
Well, I always want to address real problems, but I never just want to talk about problems. I always want to talk about answers, solutions, and
Sure.
options. And so, I say all the time, our republic has fallen. I've been saying that for a long time. We're in World War IV, but it's really against our own government. It's democide. It's not civil war. It's not us against us. It's us against them. It's parents against pedos. Reset against resistance. We're not militia. We're resistance. Militia, for one reason, is all the men today are wimps, and all the dads are wimps. But the Great American Meetup is something I've done for decades. When I have a martial arts dojo since 1990. I'm a master martial artist. I'm in the Hall of Fame, got master rank, and I teach a lot of firearms. Taught all the military branches, including the Coast Guard, classes as big as 600. Teach ladies fight back, teach kids martial arts, have a chaplaincy. So I have all these places where I've taught these people year after year, decade after decade. So we've become very close, extended family. And those are people you can rely on. So, when the government came after me, there were people who just stood by me, because they had been with me forever. And I'm trying to offer that to others. So primarily, it'll be me at the Stony Creek Resort. You go to jeffreyprather.com/gam and see the schedule. And it's my primary senior teachers and chaplains, because Team America is Americans, relying on each other and God, not on corrupt government, because government ain't going to help. Government's always going to hurt. And also the chaplaincy, christchaplaincy.com, which is a very different kind of chaplaincy. Not just, saying prayers and reciting scripture, but it's like, okay, what's the protocol for sanctification? Why does Christianity work? Well, because you have to self-examine, you have to confess, you have to repent, you have to ask for forgiveness, receive forgiveness, then you can move forward, which is why it has changed the world. One reason. So there's lots of protocols, just like if you're going to do any kind of op, you pull out your card. They don't do this in the movies, but in real life, we all have a card, a laminated card for whatever we got to do. We go down the checklist so you don't forget. So there's a lot of checklists of how to move forward and do stuff. So that's what that's about. And trying to bring those people together. And there's only about 80, 90 people coming. So it's a lot of training. So it starts on Friday night and goes, so it's Friday night is Shabbat dinner, Sabbath dinner, and then Saturday morning is unarmed self-defense, kid defense, family defense, a little bit of martial arts. The afternoon is handgun martial arts off range, dry fire, cleared, which I've been teaching that since my own handgun martial arts since 2009, chaplaincy again since 2009. And Saturday nights at dinner, Prather and pizza, talking. Sunday mornings, chaplaincy. Sunday afternoon is my other book, Initiation, which is emotional maturity. You're physically mature when you can reproduce. You're emotionally mature when you can love well. If you can love well, then you can fulfill Yeshua's 2 commandments. Love God well, love your neighbor well. I'm paraphrasing, but so it's a real full weekend. And they'll do some training with me, but then they'll break out and they'll go regionally to train with my seniors in their region. And after every section, they'll start to get to know my regional seniors who have been with me through everything. And they'll also start to know the same people in their region. So that's what I mean by neighboring up. And they'll start to build those circles of earned trust. You cannot buy trust. You can only earn it. And that then is invaluable. That is priceless. And as things get worse, and I assess they are going to get a lot worse based upon history, human nature, and scripture, then they'll be able to neighbor up, because it is not, as I'm saying all the time, first blood. It is Magnificent Seven. It's not one guy going to do it all on his own. It's a team with an auxiliary, which is basically, special forces. But it's just neighboring up and resisting the destruction of our country. So that's what it's about.
Yeah, trust really kind of is the only, and I know it sounds like the most like eye rolling, obvious. It's like early bird gets the worm. It's like, yeah, thanks, bud, you're real. But it's like I've learned through this podcast, really the only currency worth a damn is trust. Because I mean, if you have 1 million subscribers and you can offer that to people, that's a lot easier. That kind of that greases the wheel a lot quicker. But if you don't have that, it's all just like, you know hey, this guy doesn't do gotcha journalism, or he's not going to make you look like an idiot, or he's going to plug your thing, or like I help out other people that do shows all the time knowing I'm not going to get anything in return. It's just because it's like, hey, if I know 10 other podcasters that's like we have to have each other's back, right? And we're all banned from stuff. It's like the only way we're ever going to survive against a multi-trillion dollar, CIA cutout corporation is if we have each other's back. And there's a lot of validity to that. And it's also it's a lot like a card castle. It takes a long time to build up. If you mess it up, it's down and it's over. And it happens like that. You can't just, it's not one for one. You can't just you skip a workout one day and you do two the next day. It doesn't work like that. And that's definitely something I found out. And it's kind of, it makes more sense now. The whole, the only thing you're really worth is your word. Um, but to go back to what you said, could you explain loving well, and from initiation, emotional maturity?
Yeah, sure. So the other thing you can't buy is a sense of purpose, a sense of
Hmm.
duty. And so so I talk about the trilateral columns that make up American ethics are Mosaic, uh, which is the Ten Commandments. If you do these things, you'll be better off and you'll be closer to God. And then Yeshua, Jesus' real name, shortens that to the two. Love God with your whole heart, mind, and soul. Love your neighbor as yourself. And those come from Deuteronomy and Numbers. And then the North American Native warrior commandments, which are never harm the children and everything is born of woman. And if you put the 10, the 2, and the 2 together, I say you get American exceptionalism, exceptional love of life and freedom, which you'll fight, kill, and die for. Which now we don't have that. We're not a godly nation anymore. So to love well means when you become so if you've read initiation or if you go through my initiation training, all the tribes had some kind of initiation period. And that's what's really lost today. And quinceanera is kind of a party, a mass in the morning and a party at night. And bar mitzvah, bar mitzvah is just reading the Torah scrolls. But real training of preparing to be a real man and a real woman, and then executing your duties thereof, culminating with a recognizing ceremony, is very rare. The Inde, the Apache, my folks do it pretty well. But it's saying, hey, you're not going to be the boy or girl must die, the man or woman must be born. This is what was happening with John Smith with Pocahontas. He wasn't actually being executed; he was being brought in, initiated, and realizing what your duties are. And so a boy, wants stuff, wants to be taken care of. A man wants to take care of.
Hmm.
And you define. In Japanese, it's called kiri. In Apache, it's called shitake. Is what's your duty to everybody? So the way you look at people is what is my duty? And you take on more duties with you have more skills. And as you build up those duties, then that's your execution of love. And then
Hmm.
Yeshua says there's no greater love than a friend lay down his life for his friends. So that's fulfilled in that. So that's what loving well means, which is very much overlooked in pop culture. Pop culture is kind of in this constant um, teen youth cycle.
Puppy
Everybody
love.
wants,
Ye-
everybody wants to remain young constantly, and they don't honor elders, and so that's what that's about. And again, there's lots of protocols about that. Society's in crisis. Society's in crisis because our boys and girls act like spoiled brats. They act like spoiled brats because they're no longer trained for adulthood. Initiation training is the answer to that. So the training, the book and the training is kind of an amalgamation of Indian ways, not traditional, just all Indian stuff, because people aren't Indian, but taking a lot of that stuff and putting it together. So for like the first, it's purification, empowerment, impeccability, and then questing or changing, purification is getting rid of the distractions and teaching people to see the luminosity around them by electromagnetic luminescence or halos or whatever you want to call them. And then when you see there's something more than the physicality, then that means it's not who dies with the most toys wins. There's something worth fighting, killing, and dying for. So that's kind of the sequence.
Kind of a side tangent. I was watching this video a week or two ago that I'd never seen before. And it was of a guy like a month after 9/11. He's probably like my age, and he was at one of the maybe the World Financial Centers, like across the street, and he was there with his parents and with a bunch of other people, and he was looking out over the road. It's like still smoking. I think it was like under a month later, and he had been traumatized because he was watching people jump to their death, and the way he described it, it's like it's morbid. He's like he just called it obliteration, right? I mean, you hit cement from 80 floors, you explode. It's what it is. It's like a balloon, like a water. It's and but he wanted to revisit it with his parents and like friends because he like needed to, I guess, I don't know, fully go through it. But he talked about when he was watching, he would see people jumping and he would look away, and you would hear him hit, and you can find those videos where you hear it. I mean, it sounds like a sledgehammer. And he said I started to feel guilty because I didn't like have the courage to even look at it. And he talked about how he started to look at them and watch them fall and explode. And he said that he started to have these moments where right before they hit, he goes, they would fall, and then he does with the sand, and you would see, he goes, you could see their soul leaving right before they hit. And not only that, but they would tell him, like, like telepathically, say, thank you for being there with me as in these final moments. And he's like, so I had to keep watching because I was the only person there to sort of witness their death.
Yeah.
And he goes and talks about it, and how it just changes his whole life. He's like, I'd always just kind of been an atheist. I just, I'm working in Lower Manhattan, I'm making money, whatever. And he talks about how just impactful that was in his life. Just because once you see that, it's the precedent that, well, what else is different, right? It's that, it's the moment where the first sailor goes around the world, and instead of falling off the edge, they hit another continent, and they go, "Oh wait, this thing's a sphere." And then they go, "Oh wait, oh man, that means there might be other planets." Right? It opens up an entirely new world, right?
Yeah.
And I think that we all have that moment, and it's kind of symbolic in that it can be scary, right? Like you want to look away, but if you
Well,
don't
that's
look away,
you interview a lot of elite warriors, and to be an elite warrior, you have to be on the precipice of death and the precipice of exhaustion, and you
all
have
the
to
time,
go beyond yourself at some points. So elite warriorship invariably leads to spirituality,
mm,
not necessarily religion, but certainly spirituality. You can't, ignore it.
yeah.
In scripture, when Yeshua gets baptized or on transfiguration, there's the voice. But if you read Becoming Supernatural, the extreme athletes talk about hearing the voice when they're close to death. So those things happen regardless. And that's why, elite warrior traditions have spiritual traditions right alongside them because, and most of the guys, I don't know about you, but most of the tier one guys that I've known were very spiritual and or religious.
I mean, we've both talked to Dale. Dale's like one of the most like spiritual guys I know. And I always point to that as like Dale isn't some, white guy with dreadlocks, smoking grass up in the mountains. It's like Dale is G.I. Joe. And he talks about the importance of like, identifying the higher power and, following, the exact energy of what that is. And that's what will carry you through physical challenges. And I think you've had him. Have you had on Clay Martin? I think we've talked about
Oh
Clay
yeah,
before. Yeah,
Clay and I are good friends. Yeah, Clay is
he's the funniest
not
guy.
very much a praying type, but he's coming around.
He is. Well, that's what I wanted to say is, well, aside from the fact that Clay might be the funniest human alive,
He is hilarious. Yeah,
other than President Trump on Twitter, I think the next might be like Clay Martin. He's the
he is.
but,
Yeah.
but
sometimes I'm not cool enough to understand his tweets, but
Yeah.
yeah, but I'm still on Twitter too, but I'm
Yeah.
shadow banned. I always stay at about the same number, but yeah,
I've,
he is hilarious. But I've watched him start
well, yeah,
to grow. Well, I've watched you grow too. So
sure. I know, and I have been, but just even watch just along the lines of like the elite operators, you've seen him change. I mean, he when he came on my show to talk about Wrath of the Wendigo, he talked about how I think we go into the actual podcast. He was like, I never believed in anything. I just figured you get shot and it's over. And but he talked about how he had the idea for that book forever and he kept putting it off. And he was like, and weird things just started happening. I'd turn on a light switch and the light bulb would explode. So I'd take it out and put it on another one and then that would explode. And every time he tried to not write it, something like that would happen. And then when he did try to write something good would happen. And it's funny now. I sent him I sent him a link of there's this old video of some exorcist at the Vatican talking about like he's like the devil's in the Vatican. He was like it's not, you know, it's been like all things, all satanic things, it's been inverted, right? It's not just like the government's not going to help.
oh
It's
yeah.
it's these like, it's pedophile priests, you have to shirk the human chains and and talk directly to God. And I sent that to him like last week and he was like, "Oh, 100%." He was like, "The demons are here." And I'm like, it's so wild even watching him. But as you do, you start to become, I know, I think Terrence McKenna said, he said part of wisdom and getting older is sitting with all the loose ends and understanding that you don't understand. And if you're like a scientific, rationally minded person, like I was in college when I was an atheist for like 15 years, you want to be able to carry everything out to the 10th decimal place. You want to be able to measure it. It's repeatable. It's a frequency. It's a wavelength. It's a weight. It's a whatever. As you get into prayer or meditation or just really accepting that there might be more than what can be put on a scale, it's humbling and it's unnerving because you can't balance it out. It's not an electron spins this many times in a p orbital outside of a silicon. Like, no, it's this weird ephemeral fog that you have to learn to sit with and be like, I don't know what's coming. And you start to, I mean, even now at 33, more and more, it's less of like a phrase that I say and something more that I feel in my bones when I say God works in mysterious ways. You start to go, I don't know why that didn't work, but I know in a couple months or a couple years, I will look back at this and realize why it worked perfectly. And I mean, I've had that through this podcast talking to Charlie Duke, right? Who walked on the moon, and he's the one that got me back into prayer. And
Really,
oh yeah, yeah, no,
that's
episode
great.
216. Because I remember because he walked on the moon and he came and he goes, when I came back, he was like, what else is there to do? Like I worked on the space shuttle, but he was like, I walked on the moon. Like I don't he owned like a Coors, like a bottling plant. And he was like, it was cool making money, but I walked on the moon. He's like, there was nothing else to do. And his line is, the only thing better than walking on the moon is walking with Christ. And I remember I talked to him after that episode. This was early 2020. And I was like, what do I do if I get everything I've ever wanted through the podcast? And it's like not enough. And he told me, he was like, well, you meditate every day. He was like, just try once asking God to come into your heart. So I was like, all right, I tried it and it's been off to the races since. But all that being said is there is back to the people jumping out of the World Trade Center or what you were saying about like the aura or the light. Once you start to really feel it in your bones that there is something much more than this three-dimensional physical reality, it's terrifying at first and then it's humbling and then it starts to become liberating where you go, I know it's going to work out, right? When you're on a roller coaster, you don't go, oh man, this one's it. We're going down the hill, we're all dead. You accept that it's a ride and that it's terrifying, but it's a ride nonetheless. So I don't really know where I was going with that ramble on, but
No, it's a great conversation. I mean, I was raised Catholic, and I was uh, blessed to participate in a lot of native ceremonies. And years ago, I used to do a 5-day initiation camp, and I was doing one, and I had a really rough sweat, and I came out of it, and then I had a near-death experience, and out of that came, the voice, a message, that I love you, this is right, work harder, have faith. And, that changed everything because it was totally external to me. And so, since then, I've always looked at every student as, God sent for me to do the best I can with them. And, I'm 60, I just turned 67. I just got a bunch of birthday cards and from
Happy
students.
birthday. Happy belated.
Thanks. And, I got a lot of ones from kids, and I've seen a lot of kids grow up and do well through the dojo. Then they're not getting into fights or they're not joining the military or anything, but they're just growing up to be good people. And that's really warriorship. That's really what it's really about, beyond the knives and guns and everything else. And it's very fulfilling because, yeah, you're right. You can only have so much money and walk on the moon, and but
Yeah.
being in Lakota, it's called tiospoye hunkape, to be in relation with somebody. In martial arts, in the Bujinkan, it's the ma'ai, the space in between. In Christianity, it's where two or more are gathered. It's the relation of the energy of the space in
Mm.
between and what you make of that. And you can make that depending on what your energy is, if that's whatever you project. And so then you make that environment. So my dojo, uh, you know, is my oldest, since 1990. I've got, Warrior School since 95, Chaplaincy since 2009, HMAC in 2009. But the dojo is where people have always come. And it's kind of a sanctuary where they can start to train and, be safe in there and grow up. And, I've had lots of kids grow up, and I've even had kids grow up and get married from there. So that's what I'm trying to do with the reset, because most people's lives are very separated. But I was,
Mm.
I'm old enough now. I can look back and go, and I'm just in wonderment of all the blessings. I was adopted out of an orphanage by. I mean, first off, my mom didn't abort me, um, even though she was raped. Second off, I was adopted by this great family. Then I was taken to a great dojo. Then I went to Japan to study with a great master. Then I met this Apache grandpa waiting for me, and they were all very, patient and open to me. And so I can look back and see how grateful I'm very grateful for all the blessings. And, we were talking before the show about Dale's mentor, Gary Noble, who I also served with. And when I read Gary's book, he had gone back to Lakota Inipi, to a Lakota sweat lodges. So after everything he'd been through, I mean, he literally talks about, kicking people heads off in Vietnam. He was going back to ceremonies as well, to purify all that. So it's very true. It's very real, but you gotta live it, or you won't
Mm.
experience.
Yeah, it's that quote. It's like suffering without purpose is hell. Like that's what hell is, right? It's like I've been working out every morning for almost 22 years, but I always know there's an end point, and I know what I'm doing, and I know I'm working on this muscle. I want to get my calves bigger. I want to have more defined deltoids or something. So when you're there and you're like, if you just didn't know what that was, you'd be like, what is this mad? Why am I not in bed? Why am I doing push-ups right now? Versus you're like, I'm working towards a goal. I'm going to bed hungry. Okay, but I want to lose my love handles. It's like there is a logic to it. If you don't have that, that is hell. But if you do have it, it makes it so much more palatable. Okay, we're going to a point. We're going to an end point. And to me, that's one thing that faith has really brought back, when it's like, why am I like rationally, why did I like consciously get banned from YouTube and iTunes and Reddit? It's like my business is literally a media business, and I got banned from the biggest media platforms. Like you have to square that away at some point and be like, why did you do that? And when it's like, well, I'm interviewing these doctors who are talking about, you know, these vaccines are giving, you know, infants, you know, scar tissue in their hearts. I'm like, that's pure evil. Okay, now there is a purpose. And now it allows you to carry it a little, you know, doesn't make the push-ups hurt any less, but you go, there's a purpose to it. Like I know what I'm doing now. And it also it helps you or makes you stop feeling bad for yourself. And again, to quote the great Clay Martin, and he's like, there's two ways to look at this. He's like, why am I here at the end of the world when, you know, the governments are truly turning on the people? He's like, or you can look at it like you're it's almost like like you're a closing pitcher for like the Yankees or the Red Sox or something. They're bringing you in at the end because you got the good stuff. And he's like, you can look at it as, why am I here? Or you can look at it like you're saved for last. Like you are the warrior. Like we're putting you here now when there's literally like a temple on an island where
Yeah.
senators are going and they're, you know, engaging at best in pedophile acts, at worst in some sort of dark occult stuff. Like, why am I here? And it's like, you're here because you got the goods. We're putting you in at the end. It's the bottom of the ninth, game 7 of the World Series. You don't put in a loser. And that's what Clay talks about. That's kind of helped me more. And it, you know, is it self-delusion? Maybe. But I like to believe like, no, I'm here for a reason. I was put here for a reason, and it's to do this. And it allows you to carry that weight more easily.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. And Clay was even on one of my events, the only one I did a bunch of navigating and calculating the coming collapse, and that's what the resets leading up to the Great American Meetup. Rather, he came to that, but he hasn't talked to me since then. I don't know what happened, if I'm outed or something. I don't know.
No, that's from what little I know of Clay. I've had him on the show, I don't know, maybe like 10 times. Sometimes it's like he gets right back to me on an email. Other times he'll respond like 6 months later. But yeah, I'd love to do the show. I'm like, Clay, I was trying to schedule you in September. Like it's April. He'll be like, oh, yeah, my bad. I'm like, text me. He's like, no. And I'm like, all right. Like, you know, so I don't know. I never really think too much into it. But
Yeah,
that is that is one of the things. So you then look at like you look at what is happening now, and it's a workout. You can go, why am I here? Why am I here when it all seems to be coming apart? Or it's what you talk about, provide solutions. Anybody can sit around and talk about how bad things are. The rich are too rich, and you know, we're letting people over the southern border and we're sending money like harumph, harumph, harumph. And it's like, well, what are you doing now about it? And it's, well, I'm gonna send a mean tweet. It's like, well, congratulations, you're doing nothing. It's that's sitting and looking at the World Trade Centers on fire and being like, those things are on fire, man. They shouldn't be on fire. It's like, thanks, Einstein. You want to grab a fire hose? No, 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 no. But I mean, look at that smoke. That's billowing. That can't be good to breathe in. You're like, thanks, buddy. Why, you sit over there. Get out of the way. And that's one thing to do, is to start looking and be like, well, what can I do? How can I make this better? Is this just a very difficult examination? Is this a very hard college test? And that's how I try to look at it. And that's, to what I'm understanding, is what the Great American Meetup is. Is that anywhere near the truth?
yeah, no, that's right. Because everything I teach and all the people who are doing are going to be there. And then they can link up, and some of them will know each other, and they'll be from the same area and they won't have met. So that's really important, because those are the folks. Like for HMAC, handgun martial arts, is a martial art I developed around the handgun. So there's ranks to black shirt, which is like black belt. And the idea there is that the tranny shooters and the terrorist shooters, well, the government shooters, really, that includes
Yeah.
both. They come out with AKs, but we're just carrying concealed handguns, so we got to be better with our handguns than they are with our long guns, and my advanced students are, and so that's for the gun guys, and then for the unarmed guys who like martial arts, it's a different crowd, and then for the initiations, and some of them interact, but all of those people are doing service for others. Um, so that works out really well. And then they can study. And as they go along and go along, then they develop more maturity, more emotional maturity, more skill sets. And then some of them go from one discipline to another discipline. And then they become a very whole warrior in all spheres. And so For example, it would go from, I actually have 3 books, 4 books. They're out of print, some of them, but Close Quarter Combatives was my first. So you can go from CQC to CQT, Close Quarter Transition, to CQB, or back in, Close Quarter Battle, shooting in rooms, shooting close up. And so you develop all those skill sets, and eventually you go beyond the physical skill sets alone. But again, you do it in service to others. It's not just, and that's kind of really the difference when you get into, I don't know how many you've had on of, Delta CAG versus SF versus SEALs, but there's delineations in AFSOC, JTACs, CCTs, and stuff, but even the mottos become very telling. De oppresso libera, to liberate the oppressed, so that others may live. Those define those communities a lot. And one thing that's coming out is how the SEALs have been screwed up for a long time, and how they covered up John Chapman. I've had on Lori Chapman, his sister, quite a bit, and Latrell's stuff. I don't know if you had on him, but that's been shown to be false and lies
Really?
as well. And oh yeah, I mean, and that's something we've known inside the community forever. Lone Survivor was a failure to plan, a failure to execute. I knew SF guys who've been in the exact same situation. Everybody comes home, but also it's if you're not familiar with that, you should look into that. And I assume you're familiar with John Chapman, Alone at Dawn, and
From you. And then I was gonna say I'm aware of the story of Litra, but I'd seen people say like this guy's spinning a yarn. But it's like, to quote Dale, it's sometimes Dale will be like, you know how Navy SEALs, you know how they're wimps, and I'm like, Dale, you can say that. I can't say that. I own a handgun and I've gone shooting a handful of times. Like
yeah,
he'd be like, he's like, no, yeah, Navy SEAls, they're pushovers, and I'm like, theoretically, sure. Like, but I also have to be humble enough to be like, I don't know, man. But
no, that's true.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I had
No,
seen that before. People said that
well,
it was
so
spinning a yarn.
John Chapman was the CCT assigned to 6, on Tucker Gar, and Slavinsky got the Medal of Honor. They tried to cover up Chapman's, which was recorded on FLIR. It's the only Medal of Honor
Oh yeah, okay.
ever recorded. And it was supposed to be a movie with Jake Jukendall or Kukendall or whatever. And he never made it, probably because they wanted to keep saying, the same stuff. But yeah, Lori's got the chops to say that stuff. So I've had Lori on a couple times to really show, because people, civilians think, the SEALs, but actually, the most elite, the longest pipelines are AFSOC. They're all Air Force Special Ops guys. Those guys have the longest pipelines and the most versatile. And my claim to fame is I got to train a lot of them at warrior schools, trained a lot of PJs, and got a lot of, and it's not that I don't know some great SEALs.
Sure.
I do, Redmond, and I worked with 4 a lot because that's the Latin American, like 7th and stuff. But it's a different mentality that comes to, and you can even see that in the mottos at times. Just an aside, I don't know where we
No, it doesn't matter. No, it doesn't. That's again,
went there.
that's the beauty of having the podcast is you get to be the judge, jury, and executioner. Did we get off topic? No, we didn't. Says who? I didn't like your show. It was off topic. Exit out. Unsubscribe. I don't care. It's whatever. Kind of moving from there though. For in terms of like personal trials, personal difficulties, right? It's always good to talk about, how to use faith as a backbone and how to,
Oh
find
yeah.
purpose in the suffering and all that. I think another thing, and I've had Dale talk about this on the show, is your personal challenges or days of, apathy or depression or anxiety, because I think that's where people can much more accurately and I guess successfully identify with, what you were saying or what Dale's saying is because when you see someone like Dale, it's hard to, you're like, yeah, man, I'm not you. I wasn't, I was in college partying at 23. You were in Delta. Like, I don't know how to relate to that. When you hear Dale talk about, bad days where he's like, what is the point of all of this? Why am I doing this? Or everyone can go, oh yeah, that's me. No, I know that. I know that feeling because we all have those feelings. So for you personally, what are how would you, I guess, kind of extend that I don't know what familiarity card, that identity card to people,
Oh,
like your bad days, your
that's
depression.
easy because at the first Reawaken tour, we were at the dinner and my wife goes up to Flynn and say, "Hey, you know what you just went through with the FBI? My husband went through a decade ago with the DEA, and you'll get through this, and God has kept you
This
from
too
this."
shall pass. Yeah.
But that was when the DEA, this was right after I came off active duty um, in '04, and I had been while I was I was extraditing Miguel Caro Quintero, brother of Rafael, tortured and murdered Kiki Camarena. And while I was gone, he was left hanging, and they sent the extradition package to the Mexican government, uh, which exposed him to death. So he was going to sue the head of the DEA then, Michelle Leonhardt, who I had worked with. She had been a DOJ administrator. It was very clear to me that they were outing him on purpose because I wanted to pay him 10 grand a month. They made me pay him $250,000 at a time. So like when he gets arrested, 250,000. When he's get extradited, another 250,000. And so by the time after the trial, there's no reason for him to stick around. Which is what they wanted because it was exposing the Sinaloa cartel deal. So I got called over while I was on active duty because DEA headquarters is right across the street from the Pentagon. I had troops at the Pentagon. I had an office at the Clarendon because I was running the Watch Center, the Worldwide Watch Center. I go over there and say, nah, he can't sue. He was going to sue Leonhardt for the State Department reward, which was $5 million. I'm like, nah, here's the document. It says the State Department reward is separate from what we're paying him. Can't do that. But I said, but she destroyed my case against him. She destroyed it at every turn. And then I went back to work and didn't think. And then all of a sudden, OPR's coming after me and setting me up and putting out all kinds of social media that I'm a cult leader and I'm a predator and faking these documents that look like they're court documents, but they're really MSPB, Marriage Service Protection Board responses, which have also been changed, and transcriptions that have been changed because they turned off the recorder. Because if you're really doing real recording, you never turn off the recorder.
Mm-hmm.
But when they did that, so this was 15 years ago when I was saying, nobody was saying the Attorney General's lying, the DEOJ's changing reports, and of course now everybody is. But at the time, everybody was believing that I was this cult leader, predator, and that the Attorney Eric Holder and DOJ and DEA were all right, and the guy was even talking to my kids, talking to my ex-wife, and so that was there was a guy, they moved me to New York from Tucson, then they would fly me to LA for a week to ask me one question. There was another agent in there that and at one point they took my gun and badge, and I found out later is because another guy they were grilling ate his gun in the bathroom right there, which is what they really wanted because
Yeah.
they couldn't prove anything. So that if I could stress you to kill yourself, then problems. And look, he was crazy. So that was a real hard time. But my wife now stood by me. There was the core group that'll be at Great American Meetup stood by me. My martial arts teacher in Japan, who had was amazing. He stood by me, and it all. I went to Japan, and one of the guys. So the DEA OPR, Officer of Professional Responsibility, was setting me up. And instead of conducting investigation, he was telling all these people what a bad guy I was, which is not how you do that. And my supervisors in Tucson and New York were like, hey, you're supposed to investigate, not tell me, not taint the waters. but that's what they do. OPRs, IGs and OPRs and IAs are the worst, by the way, because no one checks them. That was really real low,
Mm,
hard time. And, I think at one point I had like 5 different attorneys. I never got charged and I never
sure.
got convicted, but I was going through a divorce. I was away from my kids. I was, everybody was buying all the stuff because the government was saying it, and the government doesn't lie, and the government
Never.
doesn't change reports. Of course, now 15 years later, everybody's like, well, of course they
Yeah.
change. That's all they do. But back then, but I went to Japan to see my teacher, and I didn't cry to him, Hatsumi Sensei or anything. I don't do that, but he knew all about it. And there was a guy who lived there named Mike Pierce, who was he and his other buddy Phil Laguerre was an NSA guy, wanted to take over my dojo and warrior school, and so because he had a lover in Tucson, he had a Japanese wife, but my teacher choked him out in front of me um, with a chain weapon and said, "Okay," and I'm like, "Yes, Sensei." And then afterwards, he sent one of the Shion to my room and said, "Sensei knows what's going on. It's okay. Don't worry about it." And so when I say I had these great teachers, I hadn't seen him in years, and it was thousands of miles away, and it was a language barrier, but he knew exactly what was going on with me, and he took great care of me and stood by me. And that guy who lives in Noda with a Japanese wife and kid got thrown out of the dojo, and I'm still in there. So there was a small group of people that just didn't buy any of the lies. And anybody who knew me personally, would know. They'd laugh, they'd scoff that I'm a predator or something because I
Mm,
train kids and women. But if you just know me from the internet, then you don't know. And they saturate this stuff everywhere. Uh, you know, like I was doing an executive protection class one time, and uh, this guy went into a building, and the car was still running. So we did a chain and went in there because he was going to die. The fumes would kill him. Cut him out and pulled him out. And some executive from LA wrote about it on some website, some obscure. And the guy who was bad mouthing me for uh, the government found that website and like said comments on it. I mean, they're very. So what I see them doing to Trump and Flynn and everybody else is not surprising at
mm.
all. They're very, I thought back then I thought they've actually got to do some drug law enforcement because they're the DEA. They can't just spend all their time coming after me. They've actually got to do some real, but no, they don't. They
No.
spend all their time and all their money uh, because they don't want to solve anything. They want more drugs because then they get more budget and they get
Sure.
more. So, I exposed all that. Now I expose all the time. And now when I see somebody going through this, I always try and reassure them. Like I just talked to Garrett O'Boyle, the FBI agent, and said, "Hey, you'll get through this. It's not fun. I've been there," because that was the guy who they wouldn't release the clothes for his kids. He was an Army vet too. We had a lot in common. Good guy. So
Mm,
yeah, that was the low point. Um, that was a long time ago, and now I speak to 5,000 people and get standing ovations for being a whistleblower. But
mm.
so I know it'll work out. What I say is the Savior's secret is the more vulnerable we become, the more invincible God makes us.
Hmm.
But it is not fun to go through.
No. No, no, no. It's again, it's getting a motivational talk from like a bodybuilder. You're like, the words are cheap when they're like, you just have to put yourself through hell every day until you vomit. And you're like, okay, I can do this. And then after one day, you're like, wait, how long do I have to do this? And they're like, yeah, I don't know, give it like a decade or two. You're like, oh, wait, hold on. Right. But there is validity in that to get through it. And it helps more also kind of when you get to the other side of a trial and then you can look at someone else and you can be like this too will pass. It's going to be absolutely awful, right? It's going to be horrible. but you are going to get through it. And I think that's probably what the average listener can identify with more, right? At the core, everyone can identify with just a bad apathy, or what is the point of it all, the nihilism of it all. And it's dooming is seductive because it's easy, because it's guaranteed. If this is the last episode I ever do on the podcast, it's so much easier to, it's not the outcome I want, which is failure. The podcast didn't, grow to the size I wanted it to, but it's guaranteed. I go, if I just quit today,
Yeah.
it's
No,
over.
people love that. People love to
It's
fail
certainty.
because they know failure.
It's
I mean,
certainty. Exactly.
they do. I have students who do that all the time. They self-sabotage
It's
themselves
the
because they're
devil,
afraid of success.
You go, I know
Yeah.
what this is.
Yep.
I haven't drank in almost 4 months, but I mean, it used to be like I would get drunk, and then the next day I'd be hungover and have like a panic attack, and then the next day it would be like I'd slowly pick myself up and go to the gym and start preparing for podcasts that week. And it took me a long time to realize that I was just, what I liked was the comfort. I knew it was coming, and you go, well, no, why would you sabotage yourself? Because it's certainty. You know the failure. And you know, it's not a it's sometimes it's like what they say, it's like if you're sad, why does it feel good to listen to sad music? Because there is something about you that like wants to delve into it. You're like, I don't want to be better. I want to miss my girlfriend, or I want to miss whatever, my grandma. There's almost a part of you that doesn't want to get better. But I think the more that people can identify with, people that seem invincible, and they've done like all the stuff you've done, all the stuff Dale's done. When you hear them talk about that, you go, "Oh, I can." When I had on Mike Durant, I remember I was like, "What would be your like one piece of advice to people who are going through it? Because who else has gone through it but him?" And it was the craziest answer. He goes, "Don't get your hopes up." He goes, every day when I was in captivity, like when the butterflies would start to like, maybe I'm going to get rescued, I'm going to see my wife again, he would be like, shut that down, like make peace with God, because it's not going to get better. And by doing that, he remained resilient, and it got better. And I don't know, I think people can identify with the hardships and failure more than you can. It's like that. There was like a satire article years ago about Tom Brady, and it was like the ups and ups of being Tom Brady, as opposed to the ups and downs. It was like, not only are you Super Bowl champion, you're also a Rolex model, and it was like the ups and the higher ups of being. No one can identify with that. You can look at it, you can fantasize about it, but you can't identify with that. Versus like, I don't know, you hear, like Mike Tyson talking about, like being a fat broke loser. You're like, that's me. I can do that, right? And then how they come out of it, and you're like, oh, okay, if they can do it, I can do it. So that's why I wanted to take the conversation in that direction. But Mr. Prather, we are coming up on an hour, so I say we wrap this up. I think I have all the necessary links in the description, but I will is the Great American Meetup, is that a whole nother link?
No, it's Jeffrey Prather / GAM, GAM.
Let's see. Let me make sure I have it.
JeffreyPrather.com/GAM. It's right there. You can see the
Okay.
whole thing.
I got
Yeah,
your
that's
YouTube, your
cool
book, your
about
podcast.
Durant. I've never interviewed him, but I've listened to him. I think the last I heard him at the Spec Ops Museum, where he said, I think Sugart's widow came up to him and said, "I'm glad you live because my husband completed his mission."
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you say to that?
Yeah. 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 No, Durant is not in many ways, but in some ways he is like Clay, in that he responds to emails sometimes and doesn't the other times. So some people are like, you haven't had Durant on in a while. I'm like, I don't want to bug him. But he responds occasionally. I don't want to bug him. Um, but yeah, no, that's in his book, In the Company of Heroes, right? Because you have Black Hawk Down by Mark Bowden, but then read his, it's completely different. It's a completely different head trip of just, I mean, really, it's just lowering it. And it's the crazy. You're like, that doesn't seem like some you would, I mean, in your mind you imagine like it's some heroic, like I will come out of this no matter. And the reality is he was like, make peace that you got to see your son for a couple of years. Be grateful that you got to see him grow up to 4. And it's a you're like, huh? And he goes, and by doing that, you can't get crushed. So when they
Well,
come in again,
I'm sure you've seen To Hell and Back with Audie Murphy, starring, Audie Murphy's life story starring Audie Murphy. But if you read the book, the book's nothing like the movie. It's all him talking about his dead friends.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Um,
it's not at all. It's Black Hawk, do you read that and then you read in the Company of Heroes, and you're like, are these the same events?
yeah,
And you realize you're like, yeah, no, they are. Um, but I did check. I have all the links in the description. So, Mr. Prather, I said we wrap this one up. Guys, please go in
yeah.
there. Please go grab his book. Please go check out his website. Please go check out his podcast. And anything else?
No, thanks for having me. Glad you're doing well. Hang in there. You're doing
Thank
great work. Keep it up.
Thank you, sir. You as well. And I appreciate you coming on. And yeah, don't be a stranger. Like you're good. Ping me. If I'm quiet, ping me. I've Some people are like, yeah, I haven't talked to you in a while. I'm like, I'm juggling like 1,500 guests. I'm like, I forget names left and right. I think I've forgotten more names than most people learn. So thank you, sir. Mr. Prather, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your insight, your wisdom, and thank you for thank you for providing solutions, showing people that it is going to be a struggle, but it's a noble struggle and it's not worthless. And in the end, God wins. Spoiler alert, sorry. God wins. Spoiler alert, the pedophile demons lose. They don't have good group cohesion. Believe it or not, they're not team players. As hard as that might be to what? The Satanists, they don't look out for each other's backs, and their reputation isn't based on their word. I know it's hard to believe, those who attack the least among us children. I know it's hard to believe that they're not a real cohesive unit, but they're
Oh,
not.
they're screw taping each other.
Yeah, really, yeah. You're surprised. You're surprised they turned on. It's like when you find out, like I don't know, like Al Capone, like I don't know, it's like not paying his taxes. It's like, what do you, if you're surprised the gangster was not filling out his W-2? What are you, an idiot? Like, so that's, hey, spoiler alert, God wins, but you're here for a reason. It's not for nothing. So do your best. Mr. Prather, thank you so much for your time, sir. Thank you for your message. Guys, please go in the description. Please go support him. Go check him out. Till next time. Thank you so much, sir.